Hey Gearheads, and welcome to GT Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I am your host, Cory, and in this week's episode, my nerd is showing. I spent 11 years as a corporate analyst. I lived, breathed, died by the numbers. I made decisions by the numbers. And after living with the quintessential best EV on the market, the most interesting EV, the one that everybody's searching and talking about right now, the Hyundai IONIQ5, after living with that for a week and knowing how much we liked it here at GT Garage Talk, I had to dig into the numbers as to what that would look like and answer the question, with gas prices soaring to all-time record highs, should you buy an EV in this current market? And I don't want to get too lost in the numbers. I mean, it is very easy to just dive in and get lost in the weeds and start searching around and lose yourself and forget exactly what it was that you were looking to answer or looking to talk about in the first place. I mean, last week I did have on the chief engineer of the Silverado EV, General Motors' second fully electric full-size pickup truck, Chevy's first all-electric full-size pickup truck, and arguably their first real shot at an EV. Yes, they have the Bolt and the Bolt EUV, which both of those really use kind of old school GM electrical thought. And they are moving forward with the Ultium platform, which is a whole new structure for them. It is a huge investment for the General Motors company. And they are really diving in and saying our future is electric. And if you have not listened to last week's interview with Nicole Kratz from Chevrolet and, again, the chief engineer of the Silverado EV, definitely go check out last week's episode because she gave a lot of insight into the decisions that have to be made when crafting an EV. And she comes from a full-size ICE pickup. She drives a GMC AT4, so she knows pickup trucks. She knows off-roading. She was also the lead engineer on a couple of ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, if I'm using too much terminology here, but the Chevrolet Impala and the Chevrolet Malibu, may they both rest in peace. And so she does know a thing or two about a thing or two in both internal combustion and electric now. And so it really seems to be picking up steam. More and more manufacturers are leaning into this. I believe all of General Motors' four-pillar brands have committed to 2030 being an all-electric company or electrified. I know they're backtracking a little bit, so meaning more hybrids and things of that nature. Because when you have iconic brands like the Corvette, it's kind of hard to say only electric for the Corvette, but that's another story for another podcast. What I really wanted to dive into here is very topical to what we are dealing with right now. And again, record high gas prices. I know back in March, me and my family took a road trip from our home base here in East Texas, the state with notoriously the lowest gas prices in the entire union, to California, the state with notoriously the highest gas prices in the entire union. And we noted gas prices all along the way. Naturally, they did creep up the further west we went. And the highest we ever saw back in March was flirting with the high $6 range. I'm sure we have far surpassed that now, but just a true honest opinion in that video of some East Texans heading to California and seeing for ourselves what gas prices were like. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out on our YouTube channel. It was a fun one. We did a little sightseeing on the way. Definitely a fun trip all the way around. But I've taken other road trips in different vehicles. That particular trip was a full gas-powered Chrysler Pacifica. But if you've followed the channel for any length of time, you know that I have also road tripped an EV, and famously took a Ford Mustang Mach E on an unconventional road trip, but a realistic road trip. So we know that the DC fast charging infrastructure, all those fast chargers that everybody knows so much about because it's the quickest way to fill up a electron powered vehicle, and the quickest and most ready example of an equivalent to a gas station for an EV in DC fast chargers. We all know that those are being strategically placed along the interstate and the interstate system, because that is where a huge majority of road trips take place. It is where the most traffic will be for those chargers. It is how those putting in the chargers can recoup their money the quickest, by putting them in highly populated areas. Business 101, supply and demand, we get it. We put chargers where most people will use them. We recoup our cost. You get the idea. But the problem is, not every road trip takes you down the interstate exclusively or at all. Some road trips in real life take you down back roads and through the country and the middle of nowhere. Or some road trips just take you a different way than where EV charging stations are. And so my Ford Mustang Mach E road trip took me thousands of miles from East Texas to Amarillo and back. I believe the official count was, I said thousands, but just over 1,000 miles round trip in a Ford Mustang Mach E. In a real life scenario, my wife, who is a staple on the channel, had work that she was doing in Amarillo. She flew there, but it just so happened that I had this vehicle at the time that she was there. And I said, hey, what if I went and got you and brought you back? And those of you who have watched our YouTube channel and watched the video in question know that it was quite an interesting journey, because again, the journey from Tyler, Texas to Amarillo, Texas is not all interstate traffic. And the quickest way there is a lot of back roads and where DC fast chargers aren't, which lent me with a very interesting problem in my over 700 mile one-way trip, in that I needed to find chargers when I needed chargers, and that didn't always work out to my favor. I believe the first stop was Fort Worth, Texas at an Electrify America station, and then it was heading north, back roads. Oklahoma was visited, which in a normal gas-powered car would not have been visited. Just all kinds of crazy stuff ensued. I don't want to rehash the entire trip. Go check it out. It was a fun one. I almost got stranded at a cash-only toll booth in Oklahoma, miles away from an EV charging stop, with only miles to go on my charger and no cash on me. So just fun times all around. And so that led me to getting the Hyundai IONIQ5, a very highly sought after electric vehicle. It was named World EV of the Year and World Car of the Year. So regardless, or irregardless, as my wife just loves for me to say, regardless of whether or not it's electric or gas, it won World Car of the Year for 2022. So it promises to be like the vehicle that helps usher many people into the EV world. It is perhaps many people's first fully electric vehicle because it is so highly regarded. And I can tell you from having that vehicle for a week and publishing 2 videos on it, the demand on the internet for information is out there. People are searching for this. They want to know more. From having it for a week, I can definitely see why. Yes, there are some quirks that just leave you scratching your head. Like, why are the ventilated seats not a quote unquote sticky feature, in that why don't they stay on even after I've powered the vehicle and back on? I.e., it's hot in East Texas. Why does it not remember the last time I was driving the vehicle, I had my ventilated seat on high because, again, hot in East Texas? Why don't we just turn that one back on the next time the vehicle's on? No, it doesn't remember that, which ironically enough, I do believe the Hyundai Tucson I had, that was a sticky feature in that it remembered, hey, last time we were driving, he had his ventilated seats on full blast. Let's do that again. So I'm sure, yes, there's probably some thinking in there that it will save range from not having to use that feature every single time. But shouldn't that be up to me to turn it off, not the vehicle? Like, I get it. I get it. You want the most range, the most bang for your buck. I get it. But my gosh, it's not even officially summer here, and we've been flirting with the mid-90s, and I know, I have no wood to knock on, I know we're going to see triple digits this summer. It's just a fact of life here in Texas. I want my ventilated seats on every single time, and that's just one of the few features on the IONIQ5 that I'm just like, change that please, because I have sampled cars, again, Tucson, the Lexus LX600, another one that remembers, hey, he had this feature on, let's leave it on for him. So yes, it won World EV of the Year, it won World Car of the Year because genuinely good car. Build quality, superb. Ride quality, superb. Cabin quietness, superb. Features and value, superb. I note on pretty much every family review I do how easy it is to get a child seat in it, how nice it will be for a kid in the back seat, i.e. where are the vents placed for that rear seat to get air, because again, hot in East Texas. Back when Tucker, our son, was riding in a rear-facing car seat, and our 2014 Jeep Cherokee only has vents on the back of the center console, he was baking back there in the middle of summer. And then you add on top of it, like the remote start on our Jeep does a really good job in that you can open the door and, oh, what do you know? It stays on, but brands like Toyota and Lexus, for some reason, not sure why, if you remote start it and then open the door, it kills it. I don't get that one. So features like placement of AC vents or rear sunshades being built into the vehicle, because I cannot tell you how many times those suction cup rear sunshades fell off while driving. And then you've just got a suction cup dangling against the window or hitting the window and making tons of noise and racket while kids sleeping. Or it just flat falls off, so the kid's in more or less direct sunlight, and there's only so much you can do. Or because he's rear-facing, you don't know if he's in the sun or not. It's just, there's just so much that having well-placed AC vents and built-in rear sunshades are just wonderful, wonderful features for families. And so those are things we take into consideration. The rear vents on the IONIQ, because it has a sliding center console, are actually placed in the B-pillar, which I get it for a rear-facing car seat, probably still going to be a similar problem to being on the back of the center console, but I feel like they were up enough and over enough that it would at least create a nice circulation back there versus the puff of air that our son was getting when he was in a rear-facing car seat in our Jeep Cherokee. So things like that. It is a really well put together car. The storage in it is nice. While it doesn't have a traditional frunk, if that's the term you want to go with, it had plenty of room in the back. And then again, sliding, folding second row seat, just plenty of room in that for a family. Holly noted in our family review, it was a little on the small side for what we would want, because if we are going to pay money for a new car to upgrade over our Jeep Cherokee, again, not Grand Cherokee, but Jeep Cherokee, technically a compact SUV, we're going to want to upgrade to more room. So think 3-row SUV class. Even though we don't need a third row, those offer the amount of space that we would want behind the second row. As it were, we are currently driving a Kia Sorento hybrid as our press vehicle for the week, and 3-row crossover. It has plenty of room, in the EV realm. I'm going to spoil my review for you. I like it a lot. I don't know if it's the one I would spend money on, but that's just a teaser for our upcoming video. Be sure, go find us on YouTube if you haven't already, and subscribe, youtube.com/GT Garage Talk, or you can head over to our website, gtgaragetalk.com, and find links to everything there. But just a good vehicle in its own right. The styling on the IONIQ5 is very different. One of Holly's big selling points is, since we've had it, we've only seen one other one on the road. I know a lot of that has to do with the current chip shortage and vehicle shortage. I get that. It's understandable. It's the world we live in, but definitely unique on the road. It stands out. It looks like really nothing else on the road. And I think that's perhaps another reason why so many people love it. And oh yeah, she really loved the magnetic succulents on the front. So I won't completely spoil our family video, but let's just say there was a lot for both of us to love on the 2022 IONIQ5. Now, getting into the real question of the day, the week here is, should you, listener, who is fighting $4+ a gallon gas, go out and buy an EV? And the short answer is no, with a giant asterisk, because really, despite what you might think, especially if your vehicle is paid off, no matter what gas prices get to, that is still cheaper than a car payment. So all the numbers I'm about to get into are under the assumption, and you know what they say about assuming, but all the numbers I'm about to get into are under the assumption that you are shopping for a vehicle anyway. And so this assumption assumes that it is gas versus ICE, and I'm planning on purchasing which would be better. And that's where, going back to last week's episode, and one of the questions I asked Nicole Kratz, again, chief engineer of the Silverado EV, was around range and towing. And it's just very interesting to me, the questions that consumers, and I lump myself in with this, the question we just have out of curiosity about an EV are different than the questions we have about gas cars. Because for one, like the number one question on EVs is, what is the range? Like, that's what everyone wants to know about these vehicles, is what is the range? How many times do we ask that question about a gasoline-powered car? And the reason we ask the question about EVs versus gas is because there are gas stations everywhere. We know what it takes to fill up. We know how long it takes to fill up. There isn't that fear of being stranded at a cash only toll booth in the middle of the night, middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, because I can find a gas station, even if the gas price is just 25 cents a gallon higher than anything else I've seen. I know I can get gas, and I can get it quickly. The reason we asked that question about EVs is right now the charging infrastructure isn't there. As my road trip to Amarillo proved, sometimes there just aren't charging stations along the route that you need to go, or they aren't where you need them when you need them. And a little foreshadowing here, I am about to embark on another EV road trip. This one, ironically, is going to be even more daunting and scary to me as the driver. And it's only going from Dallas to Tyler, Texas, because it is in an EV that is only sold in California, and it is only sold as a commuter vehicle because it is the 2022 Mazda MX-30, and it has a 100-mile range. Yes, you heard me right. A 2022 year model vehicle on sale right now that only has 100 miles of range. And you may be thinking, Cory, you just said that vehicle is only available in California. One, what's it doing here in Texas? And two, what are you doing reviewing it? Well, it serves as the basis of some potentially fun future vehicles from Mazda. So that's reason one. Number two, it's here in the Dallas fleet that loans me other vehicles for testing. So naturally, I'm intrigued and want to sample it for myself. And three, I do believe my road trip from Dallas to Tyler on 100 miles of electric charge is going to be a fun one. So again, if you are not tuned in, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You won't want to miss that one. It hasn't happened yet. I'm looking forward to it with both fear and trepidation and a little bit of excitement because the vehicle really does look like a lot of fun, and I can't wait to sample it and get it back here to Tyler. But that trip is going to be a little daunting, which leads me into today's sponsor for this episode. I am so grateful for our partnership with Electron EV Chargers. They supplied us with a home and portable charger that plugs into our basically our dryer connection that is in our garage. Yes, I did buy an adapter because the NEMA 1450 plug on the portable charger is not the exact same as what my dryer uses, but I was able to remedy that without changing any plugs on my dryer with a simple adapter. But this Electron EV charger is just astounding. We got it while we had this Hyundai IONIQ5, and let me tell you, going a couple days only using the 110 plug that was supplied with the IONIQ5 and then switching over to using this Electron charger drastically cut our charging time down. I remember after driving the IONIQ5 back from Dallas to Tyler and running some errands around town, plugging it in, it said it was going to take over a day to charge. And then when we finally got our Electron charger in, plugging it in 220, and it said it was going to take less than 8 hours, I was like, all right, I can live with this. This definitely changed our outlook personally here at the channel of owning an EV as one of our main cars and daily drivers. So if you have not yet, you can go check them out and their chargers. We have a whole page on our website of items we recommend, and Electron chargers are definitely among that list. You can go to gtgaragetalk.com/gear and see all of our recommended items, including the Electron charger that we were supplied with by Electron themselves for use in our EV charging here. And as part of the Amazon affiliate program, if you go to that website, gtgaragetalk.com/gear, and click on one of our links and buy anything not just something that we recommend on our page, but buy anything during your shopping session. It definitely helps our channel out. So huge thanks and shout out to this week's episode sponsor in Electron Chargers. But you didn't come to hear a commercial. You came to hear my thoughts on EV charging. And this all really started with a screenshot of an email that was supplied to me. So I posted on Facebook a picture from, we are Reliant Energy customers, an NRG company, and every week they send me a snapshot of our electricity usage. And so I put that up on my Facebook page because, as you would expect, plugging in an electric vehicle to my home and using the electricity naturally increased our electricity usage here at our house. Like common sense, right? But the graph that was supplied to us was a little alarming and caught a lot of people off guard, to the point that we saw comments about, no thanks, I'll stick with my gas-powered car, or, ooh, that just looks a little bit too scary for me, without truly understanding what it is that they were looking at or doing the math of the actual cost. Because, as I said, you would expect plugging in an electric vehicle to use more electricity. That's just common sense. The actual email said your usage was 71% more than similar homes in your area and 183% more than we had used the last week. For reference sake, this email summary was coming to us halfway through our time with the IONIQ5. I believe after only one day of having our Electron charger. So we hadn't even really fully topped it off that many times because we were using the 110 plug that came with it and just barely getting enough juice to power it every day. But we used 331 kilowatt hours of power during that particular week. And everybody was just like, oh, no, thanks. I'm happy with my car, yada, yada, yada. Natural response. You see this huge spike and you're like, oh, nope, too expensive, don't want it. But it's the confusion of the unknown. So what I did was, after our full week was done with the IONIQ5, I had captured how much energy we had used the entire time, much like how many gallons of fuel we would have used, how many miles I drove it, how many miles per kilowatt hour we were actually getting over our time with it, and calculated the cost of that electricity based on our current plan here in Texas on Reliant, and got an apples to apples comparison against both of the vehicles that are both gasoline powered sitting in our garage right now. And the results were surprising. So everybody commenting on this screenshot image I posted of our electricity usage spiking 183% week over week was like, oh, no, thank you. Too expensive. Not for me. So long and the short of it, I'll try and keep it as simple. We drove it just under 500 miles. We averaged a 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour during that time frame. So think of your MPG, that 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour. And we used 162.7 kilowatt hours over that time. Based on our energy plan and the cost during the time that we had the electric vehicle, obviously the more energy we use here on the plan we are on, the cheaper it gets. But it was basically 9 cents per kilowatt hour. Multiplied out, it cost a whopping total of 3 cents per mile to drive this IONIQ5. 3 cents per mile. That is astoundingly good. Like 3 cents, not even a nickel per mile. That's good. That's cheap. And many gas vehicles wish they were that cheap. Those of you who have been following this channel for any length of time know that my personal car, I've had it since 2013, is a Chevy Cruze Eco with a manual transmission, which the window sticker claims 42 mpg on the highway. So very economical, non-hybrid, full gas engine that is claimed to get 42 mpg. I have seen up to and exceeding 50 mpg over a 50-mile stretch, because that's how my car's internal computer works. So I can make this vehicle very, very fuel efficient because it's manual, and I can coast when I need to coast and all that good stuff. So over the last 50 miles, or over a 50-mile span, the best MPG I have seen since the last time my battery was unplugged. So that, again, that memory setting, that internal number in my car gets reset anytime like I have to replace the battery and unplug it. It forgets all that. But my trip computer in my Chevy Cruze currently says the best fuel economy I have seen is 49.5 mpg. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Over the last week or so of me driving it, though, through city traffic and stop and go and having the AC on full blast, because again, hot in East Texas, going to pick up my son from my parents and all that good stuff, I've seen 28.9 mpg, which again, not as good as the 42 on the window sticker, but you have to remember that's highway miles. So at 28.9 mpg, at the $4.13.9 per gallon that gas was the last time I filled it up, doing all the math, 14 cents per mile driven. So IONIQ5, 3 cents per mile, spiked my energy bill, my electricity bill here at home, yes, but drastically cheaper. 11 cents per mile cheaper. That's astounding. The best number I've seen currently, based on my trip computer, is 49.5 mpg. Using the same $4.13 per gallon of gas, that gets to a best score cost of 8 cents per mile driven. So definitely good. We got it under a dime per mile, but still a whole nickel more expensive than the IONIQ5. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe I should buy an EV. But again, my car's been paid off for several years. I owe nothing on it. So I'm getting those 14 cent or 8 cent per mile without a car payment, without all that extra expense from there. So, just think about that when you're thinking about high gas prices, because I also did this same scenario with our Jeep Cherokee. Now, our Jeep is a 2014 model, so it's got some miles on it. I believe it's flirting with 80,000. It is also the Trailhawk model, so it is off-road in nature, which means it's lifted a little bit. It's got four-wheel drive, both of which are to the detriment of its fuel economy. It has knobbier all-terrain tires on it, again, to the detriment of its fuel economy. And it has a current 16.3 mpg fuel economy as we drive it here in town. And doing the math with current gas prices, that is 25 cents per mile. And so you're like, all right, that does it. I have a gas guzzler that gets 16.3 or worse. I'm going out, I'm buying an EV and dropping my cost per mile down from 25 cents to 3 cents. That sounds great. But both of our vehicles are completely paid off. And so again, the savings you are assuming here are completely wiped away by a $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a month car payment because new cars ain't cheap. And EVs, while yes, there's a federal tax credit, we won't even get into the complexity of that. Just assume you're going to spend $40,000 on an EV that can get you that amount of range on a single charge, that can give you the confidence of living your life essentially the same as you are now, plugging it in at home and never having to fill up. Now, both of our cars, I mentioned mine is a 2013, Holly's is a 2014, both of them around 80,000 miles, both of them American. Take that as what you will. But we're starting to look, we're playing with the idea of, okay, what is next? What car is next? We're by no means going to be shopping in this current economy. My blessings and prayers to anyone who is shopping for a vehicle in this current economy. Be careful out there. It is crazy. There's just insane markups. I understand, again, supply and demand. The car dealerships are still a business. They still have overhead costs they have to cover. And if they don't have as many vehicles, they've got to make up for it. Yada, yada, yada. That's another podcast episode entirely. So, again, I mentioned all these numbers were under the assumption that you are shopping for a vehicle anyway. And so, after living with the Hyundai IONIQ5 for a week, realizing how much we absolutely loved it, its quirks, features, and all, its 256 mile range on a $55,000 MSRP with its luxury features, its tech features, everything that came with it, we really liked it here at GT Garage Shock. I can completely understand why it not only won World EV of the Year, but World Car of the Year, because it is just that darn good. I mentioned in my review of it, the wheelbase on it is longer than Hyundai's 3-row SUV in the Palisade, which is their version of the Kia Telluride. Everyone knows what a Kia Telluride is. Not so many people know what a Hyundai Palisade is, which is a shame because it's a good car in its own right. It's the more luxurious cousin to the Telluride. But yes, it's just so very interesting. The price difference per mile of an EV. And as shocking as that 183% increase is in energy usage, your natural inclination is, nope, EVs are too expensive. It spikes my electricity too high. Can't do it. Well, dig into the numbers and you realize my efficient gasoline vehicle that is insanely efficient. 50 miles per gallon is insanely efficient for a non-hybrid vehicle, is still a nickel a mile cheaper than that. Well, that's saying something. And I said when we had the Mach E, or not GT, but the Mach E for a week, that I just could not see buying an electric vehicle with less than 300 miles of usable range at 80%, because again, battery tech, we won't get into the details. Fast chargers typically slow to a slow trickle charge at 80% for saving the lifespan of the batteries. So again, I was burned pretty badly on that road trip to Amarillo and the Mach E. Loved the vehicle. Absolutely did. I am a General Motors fanboy. I would not love vehicles if it were not for General Motors, but doing what I do now, I have seen the light, and the Mach E was as un-Ford of a Ford that I have driven in a while in all the right ways, and just cool tech, thoughtful features and amenities. It definitely did not feel like the Fords of old getting into it, and I really like the direction the Blue Oval brand is going. because that Mach E signals that new direction. You see some of the same tech in the F-150 Lightning, which, spoiler alert, I am, by the time you are hearing this, going to have the opportunity to drive it in just a few days from now. So if there are anything you want to know about the Ford Lightning, be sure and send me a message or an email, gtgaragetalk@gmail.com. Go to our website. There's a form on the homepage, gtgaragetalk.com there. But yes, we're going to get to spend some time driving a Ford F-150 Lightning, which has got all the EV buzz around it right now. I have it on good authority. One may be coming to us for a weeks-long test, which I would absolutely love. I already mentioned the Mazda we have on the schedule coming to us with 100 miles of electric range, which is going to be such a fun, interesting trip getting it here from Dallas because I had to go pick it up myself. And then, over July 4th, we may or may not have the more luxurious cousin to the vehicle that Holly and I loved so much, and apparently the whole world does as well, the Genesis version of the IONIQ5 and the brand new GV60 crossover SUV EV thing. I am so excited about some of the electric vehicles that we have coming to our YouTube channel and cannot wait to test them to see what they're like. It's been very interesting for me as a gearhead because I love the sound of a good V8. Like, I scoffed when Ford leaned in heavy with their EcoBoost twin turbo V6s in the F-150. I said, no, full-size trucks need a V8. It's just how it is. I had a Silverado for several years and had the 5.3 V8 in it, and the first major upgrade I did was I put a K&N intake on it and a Gibson bolt-on catback exhaust on it so that it could breathe better and sound so much better as well. So I love the sound of a good V8. But after sampling so many EVs, because the ones I've talked about today haven't been all of it. I've driven a Tesla Model Y Performance. I've driven the Mercedes-Benz EQS, which was like the Starship Enterprise. I've sampled many EVs, and while I absolutely will go to my grave loving the sound and rumble of a good V8, the more EVs I sample and the more competition we see there, the better they get. And the better they get, the more I really like them and can see how there's definitely a place in my family's future and a place in our garage for an EV. No, I don't think we're ever going to be a 100% electric vehicle family, but I can definitely see how perhaps the next vehicle we purchase may not have an internal combustion engine under the hood. We'll see. Haven't figured that one out yet. Again, I told you we've just been toying with the idea of what's next. We have not quite landed on it, but if you go and watch all of our family reviews, you might get a sense of where we are leaning. I made it really easy for you. There's a whole family reviews playlist on our channel for that matter. But that's enough rambling from me here this week on electric vehicles. I want to know from you, what excites you or gripes do you have about the electric future of many automakers? Are you like me? Are you going to go to your grave loving the rumble and sound of a V8, but you're starting to get interested, or would never, ever? You think it's sacrilege that Ford took the V8 and leaned into the twin turbo V6 and now is completely taking the engine out of the F-150. Do you think that's just insane? Where do you land on this whole EV debate? Because I can tell you, my older brother, who again is pivotal in me liking vehicles, is a very big gearhead, likes to tinker, likes to play. He's had a rotary engine in his vehicle history. So there's a lot of gas burning vehicles in our life that we just love and adore. Even he is starting to say, okay, this electric thing is starting to pique my interest just a little bit more. But where do you land on the great debate? Let me know. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at GT Garage Talk. Head on over to gtgaragetalk.com. Fill out the form on the main page. Find links to everything we do. But until next time, Gearheads, bye.